Welcome to the very first of our deep dives into gems of cinema, movie reviews.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging straight into, well, the shadowy and pretty unsettling world of the 2024 reimagining of a true horror classic, Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
Yeah, and having watched it, my first reaction was definitely intrigue, but also, a real sense of unease. Visually, it's stunning, really striking, but in that dark, disturbing Eggers way.
Right.
But I can also see it being, well, pretty divisive. I mean, some people might find the pacing quite deliberate, maybe even slow.
Okay.
While others, and I kind of lean this way, could get completely sucked in by that oppressive atmosphere and just the sheer detail.
It definitely sounds like one of those films that, sticks with you after.
For sure.
So let's get into the specifics. This Nosferatu, it came out Christmas Day 2024 in the U.S.
Right, December 25th.
And the director is Robert Eggers. People probably know him from things like The Witch, The Lighthouse.
Well, The Northman, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely got a style, a folk horror kind of niche.
You can really see that signature here, and he co-wrote it.
Yeah, Eggers shares the writing credit with Henrik Belin, who actually wrote the script for the original 1922 Nosferatu, and of course Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula. So there's quite a lineage there.
That's fascinating. And the cast he pulled together is, wow, pretty compelling.
Oh, definitely.
You've got Lily Rose Depp as Ellen Hutter.
Who seems to be getting a lot of praise.
Yeah.
And Nicholas Hoult as Thomas Hutter.
Yeah, and then Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, apparently almost unrecognizable.
Totally chilling, is what I'm hearing. And Willem Dafoe is in it, too, as Professor von Franz.
Always great to see him. And who else? Aaron Taylor-Johnson?
As Friedrich Harding, Emma Corrin as Anna Harding, Simon McBurney playing Knock.
Knock. Creep.
And Ralph Ineson as Dr. Sievers. So, yeah, a really solid ensemble.
Sounds like it. So how did it, land with audiences and critics? What are the scores looking like?
Well, looking at IMDb, it's holding a 7.2 out of 10 right now, which is pretty respectable based on, 191,000 ratings. That's quite a few.
Yeah, decent sample size. And Rotten Tomatoes.
Over there, it's got an 84% on the tomatometer from 357 reviews. The audience score is a bit lower, 73%, but still positive, from over 5,000 verified ratings.
So critics like it a bit more than general audiences, maybe. But still, pretty strong numbers overall.
Seems that way, yeah. Suggests it impressed the critics, but maybe the slower pace or style didn't grab everyone in the audience quite as much. Still resonated, though.
And did it make money? What was the box office like?
It seems to have done pretty well. The budget was estimated around $50 million.
Okay.
And it pulled in about $95.6 million just in the U.S. and Canada. Worldwide, it hit $181 million.
Wow. Okay, so definitely found an audience. There was interest there.
Clearly. People wanted to see Eggers' take on this classic.
So for anyone who maybe doesn't know the story inside out or just needs a quick refresher, what's the basic premise?
Okay, so it's set in 1838 in a German city called Wisburg.
Right.
And our main guy, Thomas Hutter, he's a realtor. He gets sent off to Transylvania, way out in the sticks, basically.
To do what?
To meet this reclusive nobleman, Lord Orlok, about buying some property back in Wisburg. Hutter's supposed to close the deal.
The classic setup. But Orlok isn't just some rich guy, right?
Not even close. It becomes clear pretty quickly that Orlok is something else. He's a vampire.
Yeah.
A Nosferatu, as Willem Dafoe's character, Professor von Franz, later calls him.
And things go south for Hutter pretty fast, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. He basically becomes a prisoner in Orlok's creepy, crumbling castle.
While Orlok does what?
While Orlok heads off to Wisburg himself, he travels by ship, this sort of ghost ship, and he brings with him a whole swarm of plague-infested rats. So, bad news.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. And his goal in Wisburg isn't just about the real estate deal anymore.
No, not at all. He's become fixated on Hutter's wife, Ellen. She's his real target.
So it gets into themes of obsession then.
Definitely. Orlok's obsession with Ellen is central, but the film also seems to explore, the broader obsessions of that time, superstition, fear of the unknown. And it really shows the destructive power of this evil as it just descends on the town. It's pretty bleak.
Okay, let's dive into the review aspect now. Thinking about all the takes we've seen, starting with the writing, What stood out there?
Well, one thing that reviewers noted was how intelligently the script captured that specific time period. This moment where old superstitions were rubbing up against new scientific ideas.
That tension between the old ways and emerging medicine.
Exactly. You feel that in the dialogue. But because the story itself is so well known, I mean, it's Dracula, basically.
Yeah, everyone knows it beats.
Right. So the plot doesn't hold many huge surprises, as some reviews mention. A few critics actually described it as feeling dialogue heavy.
Okay.
Which for some made it feel a bit sluggish in terms of pace. So yeah, if you want nonstop action, maybe this isn't it.
That makes sense. But I also saw some praise for Eggers not trying to, modernize it too much.
Yeah.
Avoiding obvious metaphors and stuff.
Yeah, that's the other side. Some critics really appreciated that he seemed to set aside a modern viewpoint, letting the 19th century setting just be. They found it more authentic that way.
It's a tricky balance, I guess, staying faithful versus feeling maybe a little dry or academic.
It really is. Now, moving on to the acting Lily Rose Depp as Ellen seems to be a major highlight for a lot of people.
What are they saying about her performance?
She's often called the beating heart of the film. People really point to her physicality, how she conveys Ellen's sort of inner torment and dread without being overly theatrical. It sounds like a really powerful, subtle performance.
Nice. And Nicholas Hoult as Thomas.
He also got good notices. Seems he effectively shows Hutter's journey into, sheer terror and desperation as he gets trapped.
The real talk seems to be around Bill Skarsgård as Orlok.
Oh, absolutely. His transformation is apparently stunning. Described as alarmingly different, really disturbing, gaunt, decaying.
And the voice. I heard about the voice.
Yeah, the voice gets mentioned a lot. Really deep, guttural, unsettling. Adds to the whole otherworldliness of him.
Sounds intense. Were there any criticisms of the acting?
Well, like with anything, it wasn't universal praise. I did see one user review mentioning they found some performances not that remarkable. So, subjectivity.
Always. Okay, let's talk visuals. Eggers has such a distinct style. Does Nosferatu follow that?
Oh, absolutely. It's visually very striking. It definitely has that folk horror look people associate with him.
With lots of shadows, natural light.
Exactly. Flickering candlelight, deep shadows, and this recurring kind of cold blue mist that hangs over everything. Very atmospheric. Reviewers used words like stunningly beautiful, even while it's creating this sense of dread.
But was there a downside to that visual focus?
For some, yes. A few critics felt that the heavy reliance on the visual sometimes made the pacing drag a bit, like the images were maybe meant to be interpreted more than drive the story forward for some viewers.
Interesting. So style over substance, potentially, for some.
Potentially for some viewers. But the use of real locations, like that castle in Transylvania, Honodor Castle, that definitely adds a layer of authenticity and atmosphere that most people seem to appreciate.
What about the sound and music? You mentioned the voice, but the score.
Crucial element. There's talk of this constant, low, kind of rumbling or moaning sound in the background, almost subliminal, designed to just keep you on edge.
Creating that underlying dread.
Precisely. And yeah, Skarsgård's voice, again, reviewers noted how it seems to just come from everywhere in the cinema, really immersive and creepy.
Okay, putting it all together, Eggers' direction overall. Masterful or maybe a bit too much?
Well, you see both takes. Many critics definitely hailed it as masterful. One called it a behemoth of a horror film. His attention to detail, the historical feel, the folklore, it's all clearly there.
But the criticisms.
Some felt it was maybe a little presumptuous, that his focus on narrative logic maybe ironically made it feel sluggish at points.
Like that pacing issue again.
Yeah. And one review mentioned a tendency towards academicism in his shots, maybe prioritizing the look over the flow sometimes.
It sounds like a film with a very strong, maybe uncompromising vision.
I think that's fair to say. Now, theme-wise, it seems to go into some pretty dark places, even for Nosferatu.
Darker than usual.
No.
So?
Well, several reviews mentioned it explores darker, more overtly sexual themes. One interesting and quite heavy interpretation I saw suggested Orlok's vampirism could almost be read as a metaphor for child abuse, based on some of Ellen's backstory or early encounters in the film.
Wow, okay. That's intense. What else?
It also touches on those historical fears like Western Europe's dread of the spooky, unknown Eastern Europe.
Playing on those old prejudices.
Yeah, and the classic clash between science and the occult is definitely there too. Interestingly, one take suggested this version actually rationalizes the story quite a bit, maybe putting more focus specifically on Ellen and her trauma.
So pulling all these threads together, the writing, the acting, the stunning visuals, the sound, the directing, these complex themes, if we had to give Nosferatu 2024 an overall score based on this deep dive, what feels right?
Okay, so weighing the positives, the artistry, the performances, the ambition of retelling this story against the negatives some people felt, like the pacing or maybe some thematic choices, I think a 7.5 out of 10 feels pretty fair.
A 7.5. So strong, but with caveats.
Exactly. It seems like it really succeeded for many in making the vampire scary again, rescuing it from, mockery. It put it back in that realm of real fear and dread.
So for everyone listening, after hearing all this about Nosferatu, what are you thinking? Does the fact that reviews are a bit mixed make you more curious, or has this helped you decide if it's your kind of film?
It definitely sounds like a unique and, yeah, often unsettling take on a classic. It raises some big questions, doesn't it? About evil, obsession, how history shapes these stories.
It really does. Now, looking ahead, we'd love your input. What other movies, maybe recent ones, maybe older gems have caught your eye? What films should we sink our teeth into for future deep dives?
Yeah, let us know. We're always looking for the next fascinating film to explore together.